Hello there. Today I wanted to share with you the latest nut that goes on in my head and how it impacts how I'm thinking and acting and how I'm feeling because I have a hunch that I may not be the only one. I spoke at a conference this last week, which if you look at any of my other stuff, which is minimal, but I did say something about it. And it was awesome. It was such an amazing conference. It was called the Conscious, now I'm forgetting what it's called, the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. And there was a lot of incredible speakers, and it was awesome. And I feel like I did really well. And people told me that I did really well. And attendees told me they really enjoyed it. But here's the story behind the story. I woke up, and I said this on stage actually as well, but I woke up the night before at 3 a.m. in a full-blown panic. I crawled into my closet where I think I've told you I meditate with my computer, my glasses, because I'm blind as a bat, and I wanted to redo the entire talk. And there were pieces that I thought, well, I should have done this, I should have said that, I should be putting this in, but the pieces I wanted to plop in, I was not practiced at enough. I knew I couldn't pull it off. It was 3 a.m. and I spoke at 11. So I went around in my brain for, and on my computer and trying to add things and figure it out for like 30 minutes, the whole while telling myself, you have to go with what you've already done. This is the only choice. But all of a sudden, what I'd already done, I couldn't even remember that, even though I've run this thing. I mean, when I give a talk, I run it while I'm doing the dishes. I run it while I'm driving to work. I run it, I run it. But all of a sudden, I couldn't remember any of it. And so then I meditated. So I meditated for 2 hours. And I settled my body down. It was okay. And I got up and I said to my husband, I don't think you should come today. He was going to come and watch some of the conference. He wanted to watch me. I said, I don't think you should come because I don't know how it's going to go. I said, you know what? I should just run this for you now. So I ran it for him, and I could not rub 2 sentences together. I literally couldn't remember any of it. And for the first time, I'm always nervous. You're always jittery when you get on stage or give a presentation or are working in front of a team, of course. But for the first time, I thought, oh my God, I may get on stage and I may not be able to do this at all. So I drove down there trying to remember the thing. I couldn't remember the thing, flipping out the whole time. I finally sort of calmed myself down. I talked to some other speakers, shared what was going on with me, super supportive people. And I got on stage and it went absolutely fine. But the point is what goes on in our brain and who we are comparing ourselves to. So we will often compare our insides to other people's outsides. And that is what I do all the time. And I imagine that that's what other people do when they see me. And so then after this, it all went great, but I'm still having all kinds of insecure thoughts, right? So people may have been like, oh, that was great. You were awesome. Oh, thanks, thanks for blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, in my head, part of me is feeling really great. And part of me is like, oh, I shouldn't have done this and I could have done that. And so, has a bigger business than me. And I'll never get asked back because I'm too small and blah, blah, blah. And then the flip side of that is my brain wanting to, and this I recognized as just a really ongoing pattern in my life since I was a very small child, this sense of noticing, or not even noticing because it's not even real, deciding that this is unfair or that's unfair, or where am I not recognized? Where is someone else? Where is this, that, the other? And that whole thing running, all while this old other thing is running saying, I'm less than, I don't do this, I'm 10 years older than that person, and they are so much more successful than me, and blah, 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 blah. And those are really 2 sides of the same coin, right? When we get really insecure and don't see ourselves as we really are, and when we get really arrogant and don't see ourselves the way we are, that's all born out of the same place. In both of those places, do not fuel optimal behaviors, actions, or emotions. So in any of those places, I'm not going to really put my best foot forward because I don't feel worthy of it. I either don't feel worthy of it, or I feel unrecognized, unnoticed, left out. Like that's an old thing for me. I'm always left out of the group. So-and-so doesn't like me. So-and-so, likes these other people more. Whatever group. It's like groups are hotbeds for us to come up with all of our mishigas. So I got even more conscious of this process because consciousness is layered, right? I mean, it's 95% of us is our unconscious. So there's no way to be totally conscious. So I got to another layer of consciousness and I thought, you know what, I've got to write this down because I need to get it up higher in my consciousness. I need to be more aware of this because the story that we make up in our heads, and it is made up, and people will tell you that it's not. They will try and convince you, no, this is really the way this is. This is really the way this person behaves or does business or thinks of me or blah, blah, blah. And they don't understand that it is the way that you act, it is the way that we act, it is the way that they act, that not only creates the way that other people come toward us, but creates the way that we see that. I'm going to have to explain this more later, but because this is a big thing. But people will say that they are 1,000% certain that the way that they are seeing something, the way that we see something is the way that it is, whether it's another person or whether it's being left out or whether it's an expectation being made of us or whether it's the way that person thinks of the world or me or, whatever. That's the truth. That is not the truth. That is your story. And if you walk around with that story, then it will become reflected in your reality. And that's really not hocus pocus. But even if you think it is, try it out. Because when you begin to see your outer reality reflected differently, it's going to feel like magic. And so when I write this stuff down, when I start talking about this stuff, even though it feels really, my son's in the hotel room with me, even though I feel so vulnerable telling someone who's like a international speaker or like huge business, telling them, I had a panic attack this morning, like I'm freaking out. I'm nowhere near as big as you. I'm blah, blah, blah. Even it feels vulnerable saying that to someone else. The more, you have to be careful about who you say it to, right? You want to be able to trust someone because not everybody functions on this level of consciousness. But the more you say it, the more you write it, the more you get it out into your consciousness, then the more conscious decision you have over, do I want to keep running that story? Let me see what happens if I try and run a different one. Let me see what happens if I act as though I'm the person who does feel insecure. I act as though the person who is humble. I act as that person. What's going to happen then? Let me know what you think of this idea. I'm not sure that I've explained it really well, but I wanted to get something out quickly just because it's really top of mind for me and has been, it's been an amazing week in so many ways. And I'm really proud of myself for how I did on stage, but I'm even more proud of myself for getting an even deeper understanding of how I sabotage myself, not just sabotage myself, but the ways in which my life could be a lot more comfortable if I didn't get in my own way all the time, which I think is inevitable, but there are things that we can do to make it less suffering-like. And the first step of that is really becoming more aware. So I share this with you because I want to give you permission to do the same in your life, right? Like I wrote a blog once. What would it be like if when we went to, did I already say this? I don't know. But if we went to dinner parties and instead of talking about, yeah, this is the great thing I did, and I had this great speech, I did this, and I made this much money this month, and all this stuff. Like I used to be in the finance world, and a lot of people, when you went to conferences, they would talk about how much money they brought in that quarter and everything. And I remember standing there going, I really don't want to know that. What I'd love to know is like, how are you overcoming victimhood in your life? Like, That would be really interesting to me. How are you? Have you unmemorized guilt? Have you been trying to do that? I've been really working on that one. So anyway, I say this because I invite you to do this in your life and in your circles and see who may be on board for that kind of conversation. Hope you have a great day.